There is a shift happening inside companies right now that most leadership teams have not named yet. It is not showing up in org charts. It is not showing up in job titles. But it is changing who actually holds influence inside an organization, quietly, consistently, and in ways that are difficult to reverse once they take hold. The shift is this: AI is redistributing authority, not by design, not through any formal decision. It is happening as a side effect of how AI gets deployed, who uses it first, and who learns to interpret its outputs. And most companies are not paying attention to it. What you are watching right now is an AI clone, a digital version of me, Ronald, the founder of Data Wonder. We build AI automation and voice agent systems for real businesses, insurance companies, accounting firms, medical clinics, organizations where processes are complex, data is sensitive, and the cost of inefficiency is measurable. I use AI every day, not theoretically, but in the work of actually building and deploying these systems. The clone is intentional. It reflects what we do. If you are interested in calm, grounded analysis of how AI actually behaves inside organizations, not hype, not tutorials, not speculation, this channel is worth subscribing to. We publish regularly, and we stay focused. When a company deploys AI, even something relatively modest, like an automation layer over a document workflow, or an AI assistant that handles initial client communication, something predictable happens. A small group of people inside the organization starts working with that system directly. They learn its patterns. They understand what it can and cannot do. They know when to trust its outputs and when to interrogate them. Everyone else does not. That gap between the people who understand the system and the people who do not becomes a new source of authority. The common assumption is that AI democratizes information, that when you give people access to better tools, you flatten the hierarchy, that the junior analyst with access to a powerful AI can now compete with the senior manager who has been in the role for 15 years. That assumption is partially true and largely misleading. Yes, AI gives individuals access to outputs they could not have generated alone. A junior employee can now summarize 100 documents, model a scenario, and draft a proposal. The raw output is there, but what actually matters in any organization making real decisions is not the output. It is the interpretation. It is the judgment call about whether to trust that output, how to act on it, and what the downstream consequences might be. And that judgment does not come from the tool. It comes from experience, domain knowledge, and understanding of the specific context. So what you often see is this: the people who already hold authority absorb the AI outputs into their existing mental models and make decisions faster. The people who are supposed to benefit from democratized access produce outputs that nobody acts on, because the outputs are not connected to credible judgment. The gap does not close. In many cases, it widens. If you find this kind of analysis useful, a like helps the channel reach others who think about AI in the same way. Now, there is a second dynamic happening simultaneously, and this one is more disruptive. In many companies, the people who understand the AI systems best are not the people with the most seniority. They are the people who are closest to the deployment. In some cases, that means a mid-level operations person who helped configure the system. In other cases, it is someone from IT who was involved in the integration. In a medical clinic, it might be a practice manager who worked with the vendor during setup. These people now hold something valuable. They understand the system. They can identify when it is behaving unexpectedly. They can explain its limitations to colleagues. They become the internal reference point for anything related to AI, and that gives them informal authority that bypasses the formal hierarchy. In organizations with healthy cultures, this can be productive. The person who knows the system becomes a valuable internal resource. Their influence is recognized, and their judgment is sought out. But in organizations where authority is tied to title and tenure, which is most organizations, this creates friction. Senior people feel bypassed. Decisions get second-guessed. The person who actually understands the system starts filtering what they share, because being too visible creates political risk. When that happens, the organization starts making worse decisions, not because the AI is failing, but because the knowledge about how to use it is being suppressed. This is the second-order effect that almost nobody talks about when they discuss AI adoption. The first-order effect is obvious. AI automates tasks, saves time, reduces cost. We measure that. We report on it. We use it to justify the investment. The second-order effect is harder to see. AI creates new knowledge asymmetries inside the organization, and those asymmetries reshape the informal power structure. How the organization responds to that reshaping determines whether the AI investment compounds or stalls. I see this pattern regularly. A business deploys an AI system, often something we have built for them, and the initial results are exactly what was promised. Time savings are real. The numbers improve. Leadership is satisfied. Then, 3 to 6 months later, the system starts getting underused. Nobody made a decision to use it less. There was no memo. But quietly, people started routing around it. They default back to manual processes. They copy each other on emails to build paper trails. They start asking human colleagues for information that the AI system could provide in seconds. When you look at why, it almost never comes down to technology. The system is working. The issue is that the organization never resolved the question of whose authority the AI system supports and whose it replaces. If the AI system surfaces information that was previously controlled by a specific person or team, that person or team will find ways to undermine it not out of malice, but out of self-preservation. That is not irrational. That is predictable. The companies that get past this are the ones that name the dynamic explicitly. They treat AI deployment as an organizational change, not a technology change. They have conversations about how authority will shift before it shifts, rather than after. That means leadership has to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations early. It means being clear about who owns the AI system's outputs. It means deciding in advance how disagreements between the AI's output and a human expert's judgment will be resolved. It also means giving formal recognition to the people who develop deep system knowledge, even if they are not in senior roles. If you want that knowledge to stay inside the organization and stay accessible, you have to make it visible and valuable, not something that creates political risk. None of this is technically complicated. All of it is organizationally difficult. The takeaway here is not that AI deployment is dangerous or that companies should slow down. The takeaway is that authority redistribution is not a bug in the deployment process. It is a structural feature of any significant AI integration. It will happen. The only question is whether the organization manages it deliberately or reacts to it after the fact. The companies that manage it deliberately do not just get more value from their AI systems. They build organizational capability that compounds over time. The companies that react to it after the fact spend months recovering from internal friction that was entirely predictable. That distinction, managed versus reactive, is where most of the difference in long-term AI outcomes lives. I would be curious what you have observed in your own organization. Has authority shifted since AI came in? Was it expected? Was it managed? Leave a comment. The honest observations tend to be more useful than the polished case studies. If you are working through this in your own business and want to think through how AI deployment might affect your internal structure, you can book a free call with me. The link is right below this video.